Power Lunch is proudly brought to you by LTEC, leading technologies, touching lives.
No more Castle Premier League. It's going to be called the Absa Premier League in future, which should be a cause for celebration at the banking group. After all, Barclays, the parent of Absa, sponsors the Barclays Premiership in the UK. But it hasn't been quite such an easy start. And we've asked Irvin Khoza, who's an executive director with Absa, and the man who's in charge of retail banking and the marketing account, to come and pick up with us on the fallout of the deal, particularly a bank getting into any kind of sponsorship arrangement. You've got to be so careful because banks are all about trust. And the fracas that's come from this, with commissions apparently being paid, backhanders, and etc., is starting to must be starting to disturb at least people in your position.
Yes, absolutely. I think, as you rightly say, reputation is extremely important in our business. But I think it's important, and thanks for the opportunity that one can go on air and sort of put your side of the story. I think most importantly for us is that there has been no movement of any funds, of any money. Nothing has changed hands up to now.
You haven't paid any money?
We haven't paid anything over yet. We have had no negotiations on any commissions, and the amount that we have decided upon in terms of the value of the sponsorship does not include commission. What we are paying for 70 million per annum for 5 years, 350 and not 500 as the media has reported, that is what has been discussed up to now. We are at the point of a heads of agreement that has been signed, and the heads of agreement clearly stipulates that a main contract will oversee the sponsorship, and that contract yet to be signed.
Has this been part of a bidding process? Castle's had the premiership for many years.
What has happened is that we literally 5 to 12 found out last Thursday that the sponsorship of PSL would go to one of our competitors. As our contract expires on the Absa Cup, and that expiry was also just now, we have got preemptive rights for the sponsorship of soccer. And we were in touch with the PSL to alert them to that contract as well as the preemptive right, and then said, given the fact that the sponsorship is now available, we would like to exercise our rights and get the PSL sponsorship. And that is how it all happened.
But if it happened so quickly, did you have an opportunity to go through the fine detail?
That is exactly the reason why in the heads of agreement we said there will be a main contract that still needs to be signed, and that will be where all the detail will be encapsulated. What is currently in the heads of agreement, Alex, I'm happy that it lays the foundation for all the detail that we need to build into a contract to ensure that we do this properly.
Are you paying the same as SAB were paying for the Castle?
I don't have all the detail as to what and how. What we assessed was the 45 million that we invested in Absa Cup and 70 million in PSL. We think it makes commercial sense.
No doubt about that. You're going to be getting, you were telling me on radio last night, 190 game coverage. And of course with the new SuperSport coverage, that could be quite an attractive proposition. But let's maybe dwell on that for a moment. SuperSport did a 1.6 billion rand contract. The executive committee members of the Premier Soccer League apparently banked 30 million rand each from that contract. And only now is that surfacing. It seems to take an Absa to get involved before there's a fracas.
Well, you know, I mean, I think the events of the weekend sort of really, I think things came to a point where the minister wrote the letter, and that, I think, made all of this erupt.
So this is Minister Manuel wrote a letter to your colleague Steve Boyson, saying he was very unhappy about it. That letter was presumably private.
It was private. I mean, how it got to the media, I mean, I should actually ask you. I mean, you guys know how you get your information.
Brown envelope.
But, you know, I think, yes, one surely don't like what was in the letter. I don't think it does our image, our reputation any good to even be vaguely associated with things of bribes and so forth. And that's why we had to come out in the open and say, absolutely, that will not be done, etc., etc. But I think, on the other hand, what the minister has also, I think, achieved is a great level of sensitivity on how sponsorships will be dealt with in future. I think also is bringing other bodies into play. I mean, if you take the industry at the moment, we've got so many codes and so many governances that I think it's proper that sports should have that same level of oversight and governance and codes. And I'm sure that this whole debate has brought that much more to the fore, and it will become a reality.
Sport's not new for Absa. You do also sponsor the Absa Currie Cup. Is that of about the same value as soccer?
Not exactly the same. It was pretty close to what we have on the Absa Cup. I mean, the PSL a bit more, but as you have said earlier on, much more commercial value in that.
Do you have governance issues there? Do you have commissions being demanded there?
No. What we currently have, and I mean, we started with that about 2 years ago, and we started with all the sponsors. I mean, Sasol in there as well as Canterbury. We've got a non-executive director of Absa that is overseeing activities for us from a governance perspective outside of the board of SA Rugby. It's not a board position that we have. And we have our discussions on a monthly basis as we discuss issues, make sure that we stick to the terms of contracts and so forth. And if events haven't overtaken us on this sponsorship, we would have liked to have put something similar in place. In all likelihood, we will still, but that obviously is part of the negotiations we will have with the PSL.
That letter from Trevor Manuel was hard-hitting. It was meant to be private. What would you have done had it not been leaked to into the public arena?
Well, I think, firstly, it is extremely important that we have the Minister well informed of our negotiations, and we will surely have updated him on the back of that letter if it was dealt with in a confidential way to make sure that...
Have you met with him?
I've met with him, and I've been on radio with him yesterday.
All right. So that's been settled from his side?
The fact is on the table. I think...
Are you comfortable now?
Well, I can't speak on his behalf. I think he has the right facts at the moment, and I think the statement that the Minister made on radio yesterday was to say that he thinks it is the responsibility of a sponsor to, as he phrased it, follow the money into the entity that you sponsor. And what I said to him is, I mean, all our good intent to follow the money, you get to a point where you need to trust the governance, the corporate governance of the entity that you sponsor. And I mean, if there is then a question on how you deal with that, we will have to look at the Minister of Sport to also see that governance in the bodies of sport is at the level of what is currently the norm out in the industry.
Well, what's incensing people is the view that, first of all, two of the members of the sponsorship committee have got their own soccer clubs anyway, Khoza Mutong and Irvin Khoza, and also that the former chief executive of the soccer league is another beneficiary, which all sounds rather strange. Are those issues that at any point in time have raised their heads with you, or are these gents so powerful that unless you do it their way, you're not going to get the sponsorship?
Alex, no, and I mean, that's why I think at their press conference yesterday, they read a letter that Steve sent to the PSL, and that is that at no stage did we discuss any commissions. Nothing.
Did they deny the commissions from Supersport?
Well, it was never on the table in our discussion.
Why I say that is Irvin Khoza also did say yesterday that or left the intimation yesterday that why is everyone complaining? Because if we had outside sponsorship consultants, they would have charged 20%. Rather than the 10%, which
the fact is, Alec, there were no discussions on any commission. So it was not even in our discussions were any individuals named, mentioned. However, on the back of what has happened over the weekend, we have the same confirmation at the moment from the PSL in terms of the role that Deloitte will play going forward.
What is that?
My understanding of that is that, and again, I can't speak on their behalf, I say my understanding of it, is that they have consulted or is in the process of consulting with Deloitte to come up with what is an effective remuneration model, reward model, whatever the case might be. And again, as I've said on the radio yesterday, as long as we are comfortable that there are sound governance, I mean, it's an entity that is audited by a reputable firm, and there's a Minister of Sport overseeing the activities. I mean, that is possibly as far as we can go to say, monitor the flow of money.
Zeuner telling us about how Absa is following the money in the future, but there's been a lot of support for Trevor Manuel, the finance minister. He might have gone in like a bull in a china shop, but he's got results. And on this one, almost like what he did to the life assurers a couple of years ago, it looks like he's finally changed what has been a running sore in the sporting industry in South Africa for quite some years. Of course, there'll be people who are not quite happy about that, but okay. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time, the same place. Time now to go to the US.